Welcome to Ethos Effect.
Welcome to the Ethos Effect podcast. After building and learning from failures,
We discovered our ethos and leveraged it
to scale, sell, and build again our seven-figure businesses.
whether you're starting out or leveling up.
This podcast is your source for innovation and lasting impact.
Welcome to the Ethos Effect podcast. Today we had on Sherrel Sampson with Canviiy. You know Sherrel, and you guys have a little bit of it. Well, you don't know her, but you have a connection, which is how we got introduced, which you guys talked about a little bit. What was that?
So Sherrel and I both played at Stetson University playing softball, both outfielders, which was pretty cool. Both hit from the left side. But she thinks she graduated, what'd you say, 2007, 2003? Yeah. A couple years before me. I was like 2013. So
Maybe it was 7. Yeah.
Yeah, 2007. Either way, it was such a fun conversation. Started off with all the softball kind of correlations there, but then got into the business, which is what we're all here for, right? And that was a story about her starting her beauty care product at farmers markets. And now today, not long after, she's in over 6,000 retail stores nationwide, which for anybody in the product business, right, direct-to-consumer product business, that's no easy feat. So she also had a corporate background. So a lot of the guests we've been interviewing lately were noticing this trend where maybe they started in corporate America, they learned everything they wanted to, and then they took it to their own mission and their own product or their own business. So that's definitely true here with Sherrel, but really inspiring woman, really has like a class act of a lady, so professional, so innovative, so strategic. I can't wait for you guys to hear this episode.
Let's get into it.
Welcome to this week's episode of the Ethos Effect podcast. We have Sherrel Sampson, the founder of Canviiy, here with Donovan and myself today. Sherrel, thanks for joining us.
Thank you. It's such a pleasure to be with you. I'm super excited. And again, now that I know you're part of the Stetson family, I think I'm even more stoked.
Yeah. So background for our listeners, you guys, if you've been listening to the show, you know that I played college softball at Stetson University. That's how I got to the country from Canada. But Miss Sherrel was also a Stetson softball player back in the day.
Absolutely.
What was your position?
Yes. I played outfield, so I played left field.
Okay.
And funny story, when I got to college, I played shortstop and I batted on the right side. And my coach said, listen, you're fast, so we're going to stick you in outfield and you're going to learn how to hit from the left side. And I was like, oh, okay. So my whole softball, I would say, personality and dynamic changed once I came to college. But it was a great experience. I was an All-American my sophomore year and finished as team captain.
Yes,
and,
mama.
Had the highest batting average my senior year. So
Hell
wasn't just a part of the team. I actually played.
Yeah, well, I know, right? That's so funny. Frank Griffin was your coach?
Yes, Frank Griffin.
I love Frank.
Yeah.
I have seen that happen a lot where somebody's fast and it's like, okay, you might think you're a righty, you might think you're an infielder, but guess what? You're going out there and it's funny because when you're younger, you know, myself at least, I played with the boys. So I didn't start playing softball with the girls until I was 15 years old.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I played with my twin brother baseball growing up in Canada, had no idea. And I had this perception that was very inaccurate that outfielders, you know, didn't matter as much and whatever. So, but I am a natural lefty, so I hit from the left side. Definitely not as fast as you. I had that sneaky one-hand bunt that I was really proud of.
Nice.
Yeah, I played right field, so I didn't have to be as quick, just had to have a good arm, which worked. But anyways, I digress on the softball. We'll let Donovan back into the conversation.
All right.
Sorry.
That's better than her typical either softball or baseball intro, because she'll usually start off by saying pitchers are so weird.
I talk so much shit about pitchers.
and then half the time they'll be like, yeah, I'm a pitcher. I was a pitcher.
Yeah, I'll be like, you know who has the weirdest personality on the whole field? Pitchers. And I'll be like, so what position were you? And they're like, a pitcher. I'm like, awesome.
So thanks for not doing it. I think after you did that like twice and you got caught with a pitcher, I was like, just stop.
I honestly think it's hilarious. And they know it too. Like, have you not met a pitcher that doesn't know that they're a little bit odd?
Right. Absolutely. I get it.
Thank you, Sherrel. So why don't you tell us about Canviiy, about your huge expansion, give our listeners a background on who you are.
Sure, absolutely. So again, super excited to join you today. I am Sherrel Sampson, founder and CEO of Canviiy. And Canviiy is an innovative health and wellness brand that's particularly focused on scalp health. So when you think itchy scalp, dry scalp, flaky scalp, we have solutions that can certainly help you. And so with that, just a little bit about Canviiy. So we've been in business over 9 years now. And when I tell you it has been a journey, it has been a journey. Literally started out in the farmers markets, extremely grassroots, right? And I will tell you, starting out that way was honestly some of the best experiences I've ever had. And the reason being is because initially, and Chelsea, you and hubby may be able to agree, when you initially form a company or an idea, you have a vision of what you think is going to be. And that company or that idea forms or evolves into something totally different or bigger than what you imagine. And that's really what Canviiy has developed into today. So starting from the farmers market, now being in over 6,000 retail stores, from the largest retailers in the world, from Walmart, Walgreens, CVS, JCPenney, Sally Beauty, and talking to others, Wegmans. We're also a military basis. I mean, the growth has just been exponential, and it's been extremely thrilling. It's been a ton of work, but it's also been gratifying. And what really makes us different is the fact that not only do we have an opportunity to serve customers, but what's different about our brand is that we actually have verticals across different industries such as healthcare. And so that's one that we'll get into and we'll talk about, but extremely proud of the team and really proud of the journey that we've been able to build thus far.
If you could, and this is sort of a loaded question because it's going to be hard for you to pinpoint one thing, but to go from farmers market to being in 6,000 retail stores, including the biggest names that we drive by every single day, what was the one thing that you think contributed to that happening and not just maintaining your small community type product?
Great. What the biggest, I think, aspect of our brand growing is definitely our product efficacy. And so the reason I say that, typically you have with beauty, hair care brands, personal care brands, the ultimate trend is, hey, launch products every quarter, multiple times a year, right? To make sure that you're growing. With us, once we figured out who our core customer was, and what I mean by that is, when I first started, I thought it was going to be this cool hip beauty brand. And then we started hearing from customers that had seborrheic dermatitis and eczema and psoriasis. And that really stopped me in my tracks. Said, I maybe need to think about this brand a little different. While I've been positioning us as a hair care brand, we're really a health and wellness brand, right? Because what we learned is that we were providing non-medicated solutions to customers that really needed it. And so the product efficacy, it started helping unintended customers that became our core customer group. And we were able to then pivot that product efficacy into healthcare. And so when you talk about retail, what grows that? When you're talking to that retail buyer and you explain that story, they have to pause and say, wow, there must be something special here. There must be something different and unique. And that uniqueness is what really has propelled that growth for us.
So bringing this back, what gave you the idea that you could do this? Like, where did this start? Where did you get the nerve thinking you're some kind of scientist? Like, how does this get going?
So I am not a scientist by trade. I actually have 15 plus years corporate marketing experience.
Okay.
And where I truly got the bug for the beauty hair care space was I was actually working at a software company at the time. I was head of marketing there. And the CEO, who was the owner, came to me and he says, hey, Sherrel, I just acquired a beauty care company. Do you want to run it? And I'm like, software, beauty, like, of course I do, right? But what he didn't tell me was the fact that it was purchased out of bankruptcy. And so that meant
Small
everything
detail.
had to be done. Oh yeah. It was over 250 SKUs. There was packaging, labeling. There were 2 retail stores. There were employees. There were formulations that had to be reformulated. And he did bring on a CEO, and I was sort of, I was sorry about that. I was sort of head in charge of making things happen with the CEO. And one of the things that I learned was, oh my God, I love this. Like there was no better feeling than looking at a formulation, giving recommendations and suggestions, and then seeing that formulation come to life. That's where I got my bug. And so ultimately how Canviiy came about was I love to switch up my hairstyle with different styles. And one day I got some extensions and came from the salon. My scalp was on fire. And I said, there has to be something for this. Call my stylist. She said, you know what? You can take it out or you can wash it. And I'm like, I just spent hundreds of dollars. There's no way I'm doing that. Yeah. And I just recognized there were lots of products in the market, but the efficacy was just really lacking, mixed with also being infused with harsh chemical ingredients. And so I wanted to make a difference, and that's how we started on our path.
I love it. Talk to us about the growth of the business. So not necessarily the product, but all the things that make the product what it is, the people, the infrastructure. What did that look like in the early years versus what it looks like now?
Yes. So great question. I think because I had that corporate experience, that was an advantage and a benefit for me because I understood, right, as it pertains to processes and systems, that we needed an ERP, right? We had to have a product development strategy. We had to have an innovation strategy. And then to your point, we had to have a team that could execute that. I'm going to be honest, in the early days, I was head of everything. But then I started to outgrow my capacity. I had to bring on a director of operations. I do have a head of technology. And so I think for us, it was, again, leaning on my corporate experience. I was able to parse out exactly what we needed to build out in order to grow and to be successful. And so it wasn't an easy task. And I think the hardest task was just letting go. But when you realize you start dropping balls and you're not getting things done and you're just behind and, you know, you're a doer, you realize it's time to make a change.
Yeah. Something that I've noticed that's pretty consistent among a lot of the entrepreneurs that we interview is like the bad first couple hires, right? Like you just like find yourself in a pinch. You're like, I'm the bottleneck in my business. I need to get more people in here. And then, you know, maybe it's different for you because you did have more corporate experience, but I'm curious, like, was there a learning curve for you in the talent acquisition and human capital side?
Yeah, it was. So I think while you're experiencing the journey in terms of the up and up journey, I think we as entrepreneurs fail to realize that there's others watching us, right? And sometimes we're so much in the minutia of just doing. We're so much in the minutia of building. We don't realize that others are watching. And the reason I say that is, to your point, when there are individuals that oftentimes can approach you to join the team, you're just so excited to have help that you don't realize that they just want to be on the train. They don't really want to work as hard as you. They don't really want to be in the trenches. They just kind of want to ride the train. And in the beginning, I had to realize who was here to ride the train and who was here to be in the trenches to truly build. And so there were some along the way. And however, I think I was able to say thank you gracefully and just say, hey, I just don't think this is a good fit for you, or this may not be the industry or the time, a time for your talent. Because sometimes there's talent that comes on and they're used to having a team, or there's time that talent comes on and they're not used to looking as what the trenches really looks like in terms of, no, we don't have an assistant that's going to set up the meeting. You have to set up the meeting.
You got to send the Zoom link. Sorry.
Right. You have to go count the boxes. Yeah. You have to go tape the boxes, right? Everything that needs to be done in the beginning. And so you can delineate who's here to really work and who isn't. And so, yes, I've had those conversations. I had those people that come along. And for me, it's no love lost. It's just like, hey, totally. I think at some point, there is some type of intuition for both parties to know it's just not working. And so when we both could say it's probably mutual and they say, yeah, I agree, then that makes it an easier conversation. Hard, but easier conversation to have.
For me, when I look back at the early years of our business, the growth with the question I asked you comes into play when I look at how quickly was I willing to change the situation. So like in the earlier years of our business, you know, you bring someone on and you maybe are not quite the right fit, but like you said, you're just desperate, right? Versus later on, you know, and maybe in that earlier time, you just wait and you're just sort of like, I'm so freaking busy. I'm going to deal with this in 6 months. Right. And it's just that I feel like that was one of my biggest lessons as an entrepreneur is like the moment that something isn't right or is off, like take care of it. And that doesn't necessarily mean fire people. That means put a performance improvement plan in place. That means have an honest conversation. It means look at your accountability and your systems and your procedures and all of that, but just do it quicker. I think that's always been the lesson for me.
I think that's a really great point. But I think another thing to think about is, I think when I was faced with a similar situation, it was like, oh gosh, I'm going to have to do all this work again. And I think it's that fear of, do I hold on? And you know that feeling and see if they can get it done, or gosh, do I have to do this all again? And what I realized is I was experiencing more anxiety and more stress from it not being done right or not being done correctly. And it was just better to just let it go. And so if things didn't move as fast because there were multiple responsibilities, I realized if I do it, I know I'll do it right, or I'll find somebody else that can do it better than I can. But that anxiety and that stress of you letting it go, I think is more worth it than holding on to someone.
Absolutely.
So tell us about the process of, I mean, obviously you developed your product, you start small in farmers market. What is it like expanding and going to these large retail chains and kind of pitching and selling your product to them to get up to 6,000 stores nationwide?
Yeah. So I'll talk about commercialization, and then I'll talk about sort of pitching to retailers. And so from the very beginning, I always had the aspiration, as most entrepreneurs, that my product is going to be in retail stores. And so I knew in terms of process, right, from the very beginning, I wanted to start with a commercial contract manufacturer to make sure that my product was shelf ready the day that I received interest from a retailer. So that's one of the ways that I got prepared. And then the second piece of that is, again, I really think my corporate experience was a benefit for me because I actually had experience working with omni-channel retailers, right? So I had experience putting together marketing strategies of how do you drive shoppers in store? How do you drive units per week in store? And so that was a benefit. So when I had an opportunity to pitch retailers and to share my story, to a degree, I was speaking their language. And I think that is one of the things that I would recommend to entrepreneurs is get to know the language of the retailers, because they can tell if you're green and they can tell if you're not. And they also can tell if you have a great product, but you're not ready. And the fact that I was able to sort of speak their language and talk about the product efficacy and talk about how we're going to bring in new customers. Because I think that's one of the myths. One of the myths in retail is that we are here as a brand and your shopper is going to enjoy our brand. Retailers actually want the opposite. They want you to bring in a new customer to shelf that they don't already have. And so again, recognizing that reality and sort of that truth that retailers have, I'm able to share that. And again, because we have a differentiated customer, we're bringing new shoppers to shelf.
That makes sense. I wouldn't have thought of it that way.
Me neither. When you look back at your business, we love to talk about failures, and Donovan just, every time I say failures, he's like, opportunities. I'm like, yes, you're absolutely right. But are you willing to share maybe a story about your biggest lesson or just a hardship along your journey?
Oh gosh.
You're like, which one, right?
Oh yeah.
Because it's like every day as a business owner.
Which one? So one of the biggest lessons and it's so hard because you're balancing so much, but it's getting the right help at the right time and getting the right help for operations, getting the right help on financial side, because I'll give you a real story, real case, real hardship. So when we got into CVS, we were in about 200 stores. We got a call, and let me back it up a little bit. So particularly in CPG and consumer product goods, right? The challenge is you need working capital for inventory, right? And you need to grow at the same time. And so for the first 5 years of my business, I actually continued my corporate job because my corporate job was funding the inventory to help me grow, right? And so I held on to my corporate job as long as I possibly could because that would fund my inventory. And so with that, I would handle a lot of the operations. And so Chelsea, while I was doing this, I got a call. CVS said, hey, we want to expand you to 900 doors. Sally Beauty said, hey, we want to bring you in to, I think it was, I can't remember. It might have been 600 doors. And then I was still at my corporate job. I had a team of 12 and I found out that I was pregnant and I have 2 girls. So,
were they twins? Is that what you just said?
No, they're 14 months apart.
Oh,
I found out I had 2 daughters. They were 12 and 13. And I found out I was pregnant. Can you imagine all of that stress? Wow. And so long story short, I still hadn't had the necessary operational help and I was still doing all of it. And I ended up, in October of 2021, I ended up having my child early and I lost him 7 days after he was born. And it's kind of sad, but it was in that moment where I realized I have to make a decision what I'm going to do full time. And I need to bring on some real operation. Like I had just extended myself to the max.
Yeah.
And that devastation of, wow, I just lost my child. Wow. While I'm grieving, while I'm crying every night on the floor, the business still has to continue. It was an oh shit moment. Like, what am I going to do? Am I really doing this or am I not?
Yeah.
And that was one of the biggest sort of hardships that I experienced in the business, because it wasn't until I was on my knees, totally broken, that I realized I had to think about the business differently and grow the business differently and run the business differently. And so, yes, having the right help at the right time before you really expand and grow is so important, because burnout is real. And thinking you can do it all is fake.
Yeah, it's one of the big lies of, especially as a female entrepreneur, right? And like, I don't know that world yet with motherhood, but there's a lot of expectations that cannot possibly be met. I want to say like heartfully, I don't know the right word, but I am very touched by the story that you just shared. And thank you so much for being so vulnerable. And I'm really sorry that you went through that. But I do think that message is so powerful, especially to our female listeners. So thank you.
Thank you. No, it's real stuff. Absolutely.
Yeah. And it's just that stuff that, you know, there's a lot of glamorizing of being an entrepreneur, you know, and I'm sure in the beauty industry too, it might even be like more than I understand in the insurance industry. But, you know, there's just so much hype about the side hustle or the hustle or whatever it is that people are doing, and the grind and the 80-hour weeks and shit like that. And it's not sustainable. That's not actually how a well-run business works. Like, it doesn't have to be that way. So thank you for being an example of that.
Absolutely. And just to add to that, you know, I talk to folks all the time, like, oh my God, I want to be my own boss. And I'm like, listen, you're going to work 50 times harder than you've ever worked in your corporate job. So if you're ready to have that experience, granted, it's super fulfilling, as you and I know. There's nothing more fulfilling than seeing your dream come to life. But just know it's not easier than having a corporate job. So I try to tell people that all the time.
It's not what you think it is. And we just had a really good conversation with another guest, and he was talking about who was it? He was referencing somebody else about this famous CEO was asked, like, if you could do it all again, would you?
NVIDIA.
Yeah. Do you want to share that?
Yeah, just super successful company. And I haven't heard it firsthand. So I'm kind of paraphrasing his paraphrase.
We're playing telephone with this, but it is pretty cool.
Yeah. Just NVIDIA is a huge company right now. I think they're one of the, top 10 largest tech companies right now, and apparently the CEO said he wouldn't do it again.
Yeah, like when asked, like, would you do it again? No, probably not. Like, shit sucks sometimes, you know?
Yeah,
100%. So what's next for Canviiy?
Oh, great question. So what's exciting about our brand and recognizing that, so we've worked with Moffitt Cancer Center over 6 years now, and we are the only sort of hair care, scalp care brand that they currently partner with. And recognizing the difference that we were making for oncology cancer patients, we recognized we wanted to go deeper into healthcare. And so last year we forged a partnership with a healthcare group purchasing organization. That's how healthcare's procure. And so now we have access to over 4,400 hospital systems. So what's next for Canviiy is going deeper into healthcare. And we've already started on that path. We've already partnered with Harris Health in Texas, as well as University Health. We're having conversations with some of the biggest healthcare companies in North America. And so I'm really excited not to just grow into healthcare, but to truly change lives. Again, to know you started on this journey in the farmer's market and just bringing great product to market, and now being able to help diverse patient populations, oncology patient populations, have quality hair and scalp care products while during care. It's just, you could not have, I couldn't have guessed this in a million years. This is where we would be. And so I'm excited for that. That's what's next. In addition to that, we intend to continue to grow out our retail footprint. So again, Canviiy scalpless products are in over 6,000 retail stores, also on military bases. And the easiest way to find out about us is by going to canviiy.com/where to buy. And we're just excited to bring great quality products to shoppers across America.
And if our listeners want to follow you or your journey, where is the best place for them to find you?
Absolutely. So you can follow us at Canviiy on Instagram, and that's spelled Canviiy, or on LinkedIn, we have a company page, or I have a page, Sherrel Sampson. And our company page is at Canviiy. And so I'm excited to partner and to talk to any entrepreneurs that's interested in the journey. It's not easy, but honestly, just asking the question is sometimes the best way to go about building your business.
I love it. Well, this has been really fun. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
To our Ethos Effect listeners, go ahead and share, like, subscribe to the Ethos Effect podcast. And we will be here again, obviously, every single week. Follow Sherrel, follow her journey. I mean, I don't think there's more of an American dream than farmers market to 6,000 retail stores. And obviously, you're about to disrupt the healthcare industry as well. So huge congratulations to you. And thank you again for being here.